Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Rochford District Council's remote council meeting, and a warm welcome also to anybody watching this via the live stream. Members, since our last meeting, we have sadly lost one of our fellow councillors, Councillor Diane Hoy. It is appropriate for council to honour her with a minute's silence. Diane represented the residents of Hullbridge as a district councillor for 8 years. She's a big loss to the district of Rochford and will be missed by me and all her fellow councillors, as well as the residents whom she represented. Members, please click on the raise hand icon if you would like to say a few words. Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, as the County Councillor for Hullbridge Ward, I would like to express my sadness to the passing of Councillor Mrs Diane Hoy, a fellow ward councillor who I have had the pleasure to work with on several occasions. I understand the heartache the family have gone through, and she will be missed by the residents of Hullbridge. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Weston. Councillor Wootton.
Chairman, thank you. On behalf of the Conservative group of Rochford District Council, I would like to take a few moments to pay tribute to Diane Hoy and express our sadness following the loss of our fellow councillor on the 11th of September. I've only known Diane for a very short time, and that was as a colleague within this chamber. She was first elected to Rochford District Council as a councillor for Hullbridge in 2011, representing the Green Party. Whatever divides us politically, the one thing which unites us all is our common personal commitment and determination to support the residents we represent in the very best way possible. Diane, together with her husband, Councillor Michael Hoy at her side, has done that superbly well. She was passionate, hardworking and caring, and as a result, the Hullbridge community have benefited in so many ways over the past 9 years with her significant contribution. It was an honour, along with the Deputy Leader, Councillor Cheryl Rowe, to stand in Ferry Road, Hullbridge last Monday as the funeral cortege passed, so that in our very small way we could pay tribute to Diane. Everyone we spoke to that day had such warm words to say about Diane. She will be sadly missed. Our heartfelt condolences go to Michael and all the family. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Diane said that it was an honour and a privilege to represent the people of Hullbridge, and that statement alone demonstrates the kindness of Diane, who was always thinking of everyone else. John and I were, in Diane's words, honoured and privileged to have worked with Diane on the council, and her positive, insightful and constructive manner in representing her residents shone through everything she did. Diane never said no to a request for assistance. You get to know someone really well when you work with them for a period of time, and we were fortunate to also become family friends, and Diane's love for her family was obvious. It would be hard for many people to accept the loss of such a kind, warm and welcoming person, and our thoughts and prayers are with Diane's family, especially Michael and her children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say a few words in tribute to Diane Hoy. Diane was a very down-to-earth person, and she'd always go out of her way to help people. She had a real strong sense of social justice, and she was always ready to go the extra yard to help her residents, particularly those that were vulnerable. Diane was a real tough cookie, and she was always positive in her outlook. I remember standing outside a polling station on an unseasonably cold day. Diane was receiving treatment at the time, but she still came out, as always, determined to play her part. When concerned residents came up and asked her how she was, Diane cheerily told each one that she was fine. But once they'd gone, Diane, in her understated, matter-of-fact way, said that there was no point in her complaining, as there was always someone else worse off than her. Diane was fun to be with socially and was always good company. She was devoted to Michael and their children, Joshua and Emily, and to her wider family. In this saddest of times, I hope that they will be able to find some comfort from the many warm tributes paid to Diane by so many residents. I've lost a good friend, and the residents of Holbridge have lost a hard-working and determined councillor. Diane, rest in peace.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got a small little snippet to say, just that emphasises that Diane was someone who was prepared to go a little bit extra and to be very helpful to people who asked for her assistance. And it's just that Tina and myself was looking at some photos, and we come across one with Diane with Tina just about a couple of years ago, when she came over to Wakering just to help with a bit of campaigning. And when we were asking for assistance from some other people, Diane was the first to volunteer, and it's a lovely photo of her and Tina on a nice sunny day. And I remember that day because it was a really enjoyable day, and I think Diane enjoyed herself coming over to Wakering, and that's how I remember her. And it's a very sad situation that she's no longer here to help others, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually haven't got anything prepared like some of the others, but I do want to pay tribute not just to Diane but to Michael as well. I think it goes without saying that every member here and officer was not only saddened but shocked by the sad news we received a couple of weeks ago. And I think the reason why I was so shocked was because both Diane and Michael, certainly with most of us, didn't. And I think Stuart Wilson's alluded to this already. You know, the pair of them carried on, and we didn't realise just how serious the situation was. And I think that just goes to show just what the type of people that Mr. and Mrs. Hoy are, and you know how they've dealt with this. My heart goes out to Michael and everyone that's known and loves Diane. And like every member here, I'm sure we'll be here and drop everything if anybody within the Hoy family needs any help. But I just wanted to say something. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say a couple of words for Diane Hoy on behalf of the Liberal Party. She was a very, very well-liked person on this side of the fence. She did exactly what she said she would do. She was very straightforward, no-nonsense person, and we all loved her to bits. She will be sorely missed. And I wish, if anything that we can do for the family, for Michael, help him in any way, we will do so. And I send my sincere thoughts to the family, and she was a lovely lady. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Mr. Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. Tracy's much harder than I thought it would be, actually, and it was really nice to hear all of those words that members have spoken about Diane. And I know there are other councillors here who've been through the same process as I'm going through now, and I don't think any of us can realise what it's like until we've gone through it ourselves. And you have my deepest sympathy as well, even though it may have been some years ago or even more recently. Again, I I'll be very brief. I really just want to say thank you very much to all those members who've sent the cards and letters to me. They're very nice, and they are very helpful for both myself and the children, and as has been said before, the wider family. And also again to the members who came along to the funeral and stood along Ferry Road or some of the side routes, and they were joined by Mark Francois as well, who kindly came along and paid his respects, and also a large number of residents of Holbridge, which was very touching indeed. I won't say much more, but I know I did put this on the ask for it to be put on the Friday drop, but I just wanted to read it again to everybody. These were very much Diane's last words. Diane, being Diane, decided to write a letter to everybody to be read out at her funeral, but obviously not many people were at the funeral, unfortunately. These are the final words to the residents of Holbridge, and in her words: to the people of Holbridge, it has been an honour and a privilege to have served you for the last 8 years. My last words to you are to be kind to one another. I'd just like to leave you with those thoughts, and perhaps we can all be kind to one another, not just our residents, and I'm sure we will in the future. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Members, we will now observe a minute's silence in honour of Councillor Diane Hoy. Thank you, members. Members, I shall now take agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillors Phil Shaw and Jamie Burton. Are there any others, members?
Also, James Newport, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley, that will be noted. Agenda item 2, minutes of the meetings held on the 14th of July 2020 and the extraordinary meeting held on the 8th of September 2020. Members, are you happy for me to sign in due course of minutes of the council held on the 14th of July and of the extraordinary council held on the 8th of September? I will assume agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon. Members, they have been agreed. Thank you. Members, item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? None indicated. Thank you. Agenda item 4, members, announcements from the chairman, leader or head of paid service. Members, you may recall that in the last municipal year, my nominated charities were the RNLI and the Alzheimer's Society. Last Friday, I'm pleased to announce that I presented a cheque to the RNLI for the sum of 4,950.74. All charities at the moment are struggling, and I'm pleased that we did a little bit to assist the RNLI. A similar cheque will go in due course to the Alzheimer's Society. I'm particularly pleased with that amount that we collected, bearing in mind that 2 of my charity events were cancelled. And I'd like to thank all of those who assisted me in my charity endeavours and all of those that contributed. Thank you. Councillor Wootton.
Chairman, thank you. With your permission, Chairman, I would like to make a statement in respect of the current COVID-19 pandemic and Rochford District Council. I have received a number of questions following the announcement by Essex County Council on the 13th of October that it formally asked the government to raise the COVID alert level of those borough and district authorities within the administrative boundary of Essex County Council from medium, that's lowest tier 1, to high, medium, middle, tier 2. As members will now know, the Secretary of State did indeed move us to the higher tier 2 category. This took effect at 1 minute past midnight on Saturday the 17th of October. By way of some background for members, on Friday 9th of October, all council leaders, with the exception of Southend and Thurrock, which of course are unitary authorities, were invited to a meeting convened by the leader of Essex County Council, Councillor David Finch. A short presentation was given by Dr. Mike Gogarty, Director of Public Health, Essex County Council, showing infection rates across the county and projected growth and comparison rates. He explained his rationale and provided supporting evidence before suggesting making an approach to the Secretary of State. The key headlines and data have since been shared and are more widely in the public domain. A similar presentation was also made to MPs across the county. The compelling message was that whilst infection rates vary across the county and relative to other parts of the country, they are still quite low. However, Essex is no different to what has been seen in the high infection areas, and unchecked, the spread of the virus is on a similar growth trajectory. Dr. Gogarty's clear advice and very strong recommendation was that whilst infection levels are still low, it would be preferable to take proactive measures to control the rate of growth. It is important that members understand the role of Essex County Council in this situation. Any decision to petition the Secretary of State is legally that of the Director of Public Health, who is employed by Essex County Council. Any decision to move authorities between tiers is the decision solely of the Secretary of State. Rochford District Council, in common with all districts, boroughs, and Chelmsford City Council, sits beneath the County Council and is therefore directly impacted. Given Rochford's close proximity to Southend, I have to place on record my personal disappointment that as a unitary authority, Southend has chosen not to adopt the same strategy as Essex County. Thurrock, also as a unitary, has also chosen not to be included in the Essex-wide approach, albeit that evidence within the last few days suggests there is significant growth in infection rates there. Essentially, we are seeing exponential growth in cases of COVID-19, and I am satisfied that Essex County Council would not have called for this action unless it was thought absolutely necessary to curb transmission rates and ultimately prevent deaths. I am happy to stand by that decision, but at the same time, I do not underestimate the concerns about the economic impact of increased COVID restrictions, which I totally understand. However, we have to work within the three-tier system imposed by central government. Our status within the high tier will be reviewed every 2 weeks by the government in conjunction with Essex County Council. If we comply, and I stress the individual responsibility we all have in this respect to comply with the restrictions, whilst there is no certainty, there is every chance that the data will improve and our status within the high tier will be as short as possible. There is a basic principle here in that the sooner we get in to stop the spread of this virus, the sooner we can get out of it. But we're not there yet, and the proactive decisions taken by the Director of Public Health are intended to make sure that infection rates do not increase out of control. But this virus is new to everyone on this planet, and governments, scientists and health officials are still learning. And there are very wide opinions, but all with the same objective, which is to eradicate this wretched virus. So all we can do is work on what we know and take well-intentioned steps based on that knowledge. And to my mind, it is important that we act now in order to save lives, minimise as far as possible the pressure on hospitals, support our local economy, and shorten the period that we have enhanced restrictions in place. Thank you, Chairman. That completes my statement.
Thank you, Councillor Water. Members, I shall now take agenda item 5, public questions and member questions on notice, of which there are none. Agenda item 6, business from last meeting. Members, does anybody have any questions relating to business from the council meetings held on the 14th of July 2020 and or the 8th of September 2020? No one's indicating. Thank you, members. Agenda item 7, to note the minutes of the executive and committee meetings held between the period 1st of July 2020 to the 6th of October 2020. Are these noted, members? I will assume your agreement unless you click on the raised hand icon. Thank you, members. That's been agreed. Agenda item 8, members, to consider any reports from the executive and committees to council. Item 8.1, report of the review committee annual report 2019/20. Councillor Sperring, Vice Chairman of the Review Committee, will introduce this report. Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. As the report says, members, this is our annual report on the works and tasks undertaken by the Review Committee over the past year. For a number of reasons, situations developed that the presentation is exactly in line to what has happened in previous years, although members did express their disappointment that it wasn't a more comprehensive and in-depth assessment of the works undertaken by the Review Committee. While there is a recommendation on this item, members, can I reassure you that already plans and statements and paperwork are in hand to improve the situation for the years ahead, and it will be a far more comprehensive and in-depth annual report. On that basis, Chairman, unless there's any questions, I would suppose the recommendation is proposed that the Council receives and resolves to receive the annual report as appended. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Chairman. Councillor
Thank
Laureen Shaw.
Laureen Shaw. Members, you've all heard that report and the recommendation on paragraph 2.1 of the report on page 8.1.1 that the council receives the annual report. I will resume agreement, members, unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon. Is that received, members? That has been received. Thank you, members.
Muted. Chairman, you're on mute. Sorry.
My apologies, members. My apologies, members. Agenda item 8.2, report of the executive Q1 2020/21 financial management and performance report. Councillor Smith, portfolio holder for finance, will introduce this report. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. The report reflects the Q1 financial report, which has been presented to executive. Obviously, this report reflects financial activity in April, May and June, which was obviously at the height of the lockdown and clearly reflects the start of financial challenges that we're going to face during the year. The work of the council has still been ongoing beneath all of the information that's presented. And if it were possible to somehow strip out the COVID related factors, I think that we would still see a healthy council underneath it all. But I would particularly highlight the impact of COVID-related factors, particularly in car parking at the back end of the report. That said, there is a recommendation printed on 8.2.2, which I recommend, which reflects some reprofiling of capital expenditure, which has become a necessary requirement. I move that recommendation, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith, do you have a seconder?
I can second that.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Any questions, members? No questions. Members, there is, as Councillor Smith indicated, there is one recommendation arising from the report as set out at paragraph 2.1 on page 8.2.2. It reads as follows, that 2.67 million of the planned 2020-21 capital programme be reprofiled into future years as set out in Appendix 3 of the report. Members, I will conduct a vote by roll call of names for recommendation 1. When I call your name, please indicate if you wish a recorded vote or if you are wishing for or against the motion or you wish to abstain. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No recorded vote and for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
No recorded vote and for the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Connell.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Carter.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Abstain.
On both items?
Yes, thank you.
Myself, no recorded vote and for the motion. Councillor Efty.
No recorded vote and for the motion, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Eaves.
Recorded and for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gooding. Councillor Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazelwood.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Hoy.
No recorded vote and abstain, and may I have my vote recorded as abstaining, please, Chairman?
Thank you, you will. Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Mr. Lucas Gill.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Against a recorded vote, abstain, and will you record my abstention? Thank you.
We will, Councillor Mrs. Mason. Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Merrick.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Mrs. Pavlin.
No and for.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
No recorded vote and for the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Smith.
No recorded vote for.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No recorded vote for.
Councillor Stanley.
No recorded vote and abstain. And can I have my abstention recorded, please?
You can, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Steptoe.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
No recorded vote and for, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Weston.
No recorded vote and for, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Wotton.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and 4.
Thank you. Members, I shall come back to you. Members, that has been agreed. There were 28 votes for, 6 abstention, and there'll be no recorded vote. Thank you, members. Members, I shall now take item 8.3, report of the Standards Committee's working report. Sorry, I'll start again. Report of the Standards Committee, report of the Standards Committee Working Group. Councillor Joe McPherson, Chairman of the Standards Committee, will introduce this report. Councillor Mrs McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it is a little bit of a mouthful there. So yes, in front of members, they have item 8.3. Is the report of the Standards Committee Working Group. The report there is in front of everyone. The recommendations start on page 8.3.3, moving on to the attached appendix. And I put these to the full council for their consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'd like to move an amendment to recommendation 1, if I may, please.
You certainly can. Please continue.
The first paragraph, I think, is the same. The second paragraph, at the end of the second sentence, beginning that an amount up to 1,500, replace the words a majority of group leaders with the Chairman of the Standards Committee and the Chairman of the Standards Committee Working Group.
Okay, is that it, Councillor Weston?
That's the yes, that's the recommendation, Chairman, please.
Do you have a second, Councillor Weston?
Chairman, if I can come in, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt. Is it possible that you could ask Councillor Weston just to repeat what the amendment is, because I didn't actually catch it all. I don't know whether anybody else did. I apologise, but I'd just like to know what it is we're going to be voting on, because I didn't catch it all.
Councillor Wilkinson, if you bear with me, I shall read the amended recommendation. Bear with me 2 minutes, members. Members, the amended recommendation is as follows. 1, that the current arrangements for funding attendance for individual members of the council at external meetings or conferences be confirmed with the addition of the requirement for the member to provide feedback, bracket, either written or verbal, close bracket, within 3 months of attending to the rest of the council as follows. That an amount of up to 1,500 be identified each year out of the member training budget for individual members to be able to request attendance at external conferences, training courses, the allocation of such training to be subject to the agreement of the Chairman of the Standards Committee and the Chairman of the Standards Committee Working Group. The reason for refusal or acceptance would be on the basis of the benefit to this council and financial considerations. Councillor Steptoe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure whether you'll want to take this at this point, but I wanted a point of clarification on 2.1 in brackets 2, and dependent on that, the answer I receive, as I may wish to make an amendment to that paragraph. So you may wish to deal with the other one first. I'm not sure what you want to do.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. I shall deal with the amendment first. And we shall have a vote. When I call your name, members, please indicate whether you wish to have a recorded vote, you're for or against the amendment as proposed by Councillor Weston and seconded by Councillor Wootton.
Chairman, there are two people
Chairman,
wanting to speak.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Well, I'll take the vote first, Councillor Lucas Gill. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
Chairman, sorry, just on a on a point of order. Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Belton. If we're going to take a vote, how can we debate the motion after the vote's been taken?
We will debate.
Councillor Wilkinson, we will have a debate after we've taken the vote because it may well be defeated.
If I may,
do we not...
Chairman, on a point of order, it's not possible to debate something after it's been voted on.
We're only voting on the amendment.
We are only voting on the amendment, members.
Yes,
On
but we
point of
can't
order,
debate
Chairman,
the
we haven't
amendment.
debated the amendment.
Point of order, we can't debate an amendment after it's been voted on. Councillor Hoy is quite right.
Members, apologies. We shall have a debate on the amendment first and then a vote.
So we've got Councillor.
With Councillor Steptoe's already been, hasn't he? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm just fiddling around my screen.
Apologies for
yeah,
confusion.
I just wanted. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask some clarification, if I may, again from Councillor Weston, because and I may be getting it wrong. I think I know what's happened that's arisen for this particular paragraph to be included within the report, because I know that there was a request for some external training, and it did cause a little bit of controversy, I think, which was within about the last couple of months. I mean, I personally, every time it's come to me, I've been 99% of the time I've been happy with it and agreed it. I understand, and I read the wording that's here at the moment, and I thought I'd read something somewhere that said the agreement of the majority of the group leaders, and it's not what it's written in front of me, but I thought that's what it read, and I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense, because so long as, there's 5 group leaders, and so long as the majority agree, you don't have to get everybody to agree. But I understand this amendment is now changing that and taking it out of the hands of the group leaders. And in fairness, it predates my time in the council as to when it ever went to group leaders, so I don't know what the thought process was behind that. And now been taken out of our hands completely to the chairman and vice chairman of the Standards Committee. So I'd just like to sort of understand the rationale behind that before I can make an informed decision to vote on it, if that's okay.
Councillor Weston, do you wish to comment on that?
I think it was felt that we should have just 2 members to agree using the budget of up to 1,500 for any outside for any training. So I've just sort of changed it from the majority of group leaders to the chairman of the Standards Committee and the chairman of the Standards Working Group, chairman.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if I misheard, but when Councillor Weston put forward the amendment, the bit that I thought was the amendment was about taking out of all group leaders and adding in the chairman and vice chairman of the Standards Committee. But when you read the paragraph out, you mentioned 3 months with it reporting back within 3 months, but that doesn't appear within the text, and I don't believe that was what was proposed by Councillor Weston, unless I misheard.
No, it's exactly as proposed by her. She said there was no change.
We're checking that point, Councillor Wilson.
Chairman, may I just say something, Chairman? It's Councillor Carol Wilson. The training is within the remit of the Standards Committee. Therefore, it should be better to stay within the remit of the Chairman of the Standards Committee, Chairman. Sorry.
Councillor Wilson, to answer your point, the first paragraph of that recommendation is unchanged from the original. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Christine Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think some of the confusion here has arisen because the recommendation as printed in item 8.3, certainly what I've got on my screen, is not what was agreed in the Standards Committee. My understanding is that it was, as someone has alluded to quite correctly, the allocation of such training to be subject to the agreement of the majority of group leaders. Also, that, as someone else has actually again referred to, that the final paragraph, that following the conference course, the member will be required to provide feedback, either written or verbal, to the rest of the council, and that was should have been within a 3-month period. To clarify the reasoning for this, yes, Standards is responsible for training, but it's also responsible to the council. But also Standards and training affect all members from all groups. The rationale by putting all group leaders in at the time was to make sure that there was some democracy and some fairness applied to this. What has happened in the past, to my knowledge, the only people that have taken advantage of this sum, which is quite significant in the current climate, have been Conservative group members. Now, that's not a problem in itself, as long as it's deemed to be fair and open to others. And that's why the reference by all group leaders was put in. Because of the practicality with 5 group leaders, the decision was suggested, and the recommendation was, although not as printed, was that it was the majority of group leaders, so that there was a speedier result. As far as I'm aware, some of these courses can be up to £500, some are more than that. They're certainly usually over £100, and we really should, in the present climate that we have, make sure that money that is spent to the benefit of the whole council. By changing it as the recommendation from Councillor Weston to the chairman of the Standards Committee and the vice chair, I think it was, of the Standards Committee, it makes it a political decision. What the original decision was, which was the agreement of all group leaders, was to take politics out of that decision. So that's the rationale before that. So I can't support a motion that says for the chair and the vice chair, because of its very nature, it's divisive. And what I would hope was that this council would try and be fully inclusive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Mason. Councillor Stanley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I understood that this was the benefit of this sum and what it's for was for the whole council, not just part of the council or just one party. I don't like to see it put down to one part of the council. It should be, and democratically should be, a decision by all parties. and we are all part of the council. This idea is just taking away the leadership from those parties as they mean nothing to the council. And I do feel that this is just one step beyond and should not be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Steptoe.
Chairman, you're debating the amendment on item 2.1 in brackets 1. My question and possible amendment is for the next item, which is 2.1 in brackets 2. So I think you need to be taking, and so Sonia will confirm this, you need to be taking the amendment on the first item in that section before I ask the questions on the second, because they just cloud the issue.
That is correct, Councillor Steptoe. We haven't got to item 2 as yet. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. As yet, I haven't heard a logical or appropriate reasoning for changing what seems to be a workable situation. I have been a group leader in the past, and I have been party to being asked for my view or my approval for matters relating to training and whether someone should be allowed to go on particular courses. And it seems perfectly reasonable, as training is a matter for all members of the council, that this should be put before group leaders, and therefore it seems sensible that a majority view of group leaders making a decision on this matter is appropriate. So I still do not understand what is the reasoning, and I'd like it to be explained to me for making this change, if it isn't just a political move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Members, just to clarify, any member can put forward details of a training course for attendance, whatever their group. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. You've actually just clarified exactly what I was going to say for Councillor Stanley. As you rightly said, any group can put forward, so that this thing about being only one group is entirely incorrect. And they will all be requested to provide a report which will be circulated to all members as well. So there isn't any one party. This will be provided to all parties. Training will be of benefit to all councillors, regardless of who goes onto there. Councillor Hookway actually just asked about any reasoning behind this. Now, obviously, Councillor Mrs. Weston may come back, but one thing that I have understood in the past, unless I'm wrong, is that this has taken some time to go past leaders before. So my thoughts on some of the reasoning here could be to make it a swifter and quicker process for people to be able to attend some training. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a problem on this of a technical nature, and I'll refer you back to the comments made by Councillor Mrs. Mason. I'm reading from the minutes of the Standards Committee of the 17th of September, and the recommendation is that an amount of up to £1,500 be identified each year out of the member training budget for individual members to be able to request attendance at external conferences, training courses, the allocation of such training to be the subject to the agreement of a majority of group leaders. Now, this is not what it says in our paperwork. So the recommendation that we have been told has been put forward by the Standards Committee isn't the wording used by the Standards Committee, and that was approved by the Standards Committee by 8 votes to 0. So I'm not sure what the legality is of us approving amendment to a recommendation. The recommendation which we're changing isn't the recommendation which we're supposed to be approving anyway. On that basis, I can't support it. I can't see how it should go ahead. I think it personally should be deferred to the next meeting so we can get it right.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Belton.
Sorry, if I could have a ruling on the legality as well, please, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you on that, Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson has pretty much made the point I was going to make, that it seems to me that by having one leader sign it off just speeds the process up as opposed to anything else, because any party or any member can request funds for training. Therefore, by having one person sign that off, it seems to be a more efficient process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Councillor Hoy, I think what you're saying is that the recommendation 1, as in the papers, is not the recommendation as put forward by the Standards Committee. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
It is.
Councillor Mr Hoy, for the benefit of other members, I've just looked at the minutes of the Standards Committee, the relevant one, and the recommendation as put forward today seems to be exactly the same as that recommendation put forward by the Standards Committee.
If I may, Chairman, the one I've got in front of me, which I was sent today, is different to one in the minutes which are publicly available on our website, which I've just looked up. The one we've received today it says all group leaders. The one on that I looked up on the website says a majority of group leaders.
This is a report, and it says that the amount of be identified each year as the laboratory for individuals able to press attendance. The allocation of such change to be subject to the agreement of a majority of group leaders.
Councillor Hoy, the agreement or recommendation agreed by the Standards Committee said that, and I shall read it to you, subject to the agreement of a majority of group leaders, which is exactly the same as in respect of the recommendation put forward in today's papers. Councillor Efty.
Somehow, if I may, Chairman,
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say that of my recollection of the meeting of standards, that it is quite correct in the paperwork I just opened on my laptop, the majority of group leaders, and also agree with what Councillor McPherson and Councillor Danielle said for speed to get these things through. And I know that the training course we lost out on a much reduced rate because it took so long to go through all the party leaders. Thank you.
Sorry, on a point of order, Chairman, can I ask why I've been sent different paperwork to the Conservative members then, please? Because my paperwork, which I've received today and just opened, says all group leaders. It doesn't say majority, it says all group leaders. And that's my paper today. I don't know how I can participate in a meeting if I've been sent the wrong paperwork.
And so does mine, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Chairman, if I may come in, just to maybe help.
Councillor Ward, carry on.
You're on mute.
Councillor Ward.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chairman. Yeah, I think on page 8.3.1, where we have the recommendations 2.1 going down to 0.1 and then 2 in brackets, but 1, yes, it does actually say subject to the agreement of the majority of group leaders. It actually says that. It carries on into page 8.3.2, which is correct. But if you go down into the appendix, it is different. It is a totally different recommendation at 2.2, which I think is the confusion, because it's totally different, which is on 8.3.4.
Yeah.
Just a point pointing out.
Yeah. Members, the appendix was the original report that went to the Standards Committee,
Which they changed.
which was then changed. Okay. Members, I think that we've debated this enough. I will now take a vote on the amended substantive motion as put forward by Councillor Weston and seconded by Councillor Wootton. And for the benefit of doubt, I shall read that out again.
I did request some kind of explanation for the reasoning for this amendment, and the person who's put forward the amendment hasn't provided appropriate reasoning, as far as I'm aware.
I take your point, Councillor Hookway.
It's a matter of about saving time, but as far as I'm aware, all these training courses are advertised well in advance, different months in advance, and it would only be a matter of appropriate administration rather than attempting to deny other groups access to a decision-making process which they already currently have. Thank you.
Councillor Hookway, I take your point, but we have...
Sorry, Robin, you're on mute, my love. Robin, you're on mute. Sorry, Chairman, you're on mute.
Councillor Hookway, I take your point, but we have debated this enough, I feel. We now will take a vote on the
Mr. Chairman,
amendment.
before you do so, I'd like to make a statement of personal clarification about something that's been said.
Carry on, Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you. It's been alluded to that the group leaders have taken considerable time. And on the last request that we had, that is true. The reason, and I think it took me about 2 weeks, was because I went straight back to the officer and asked for details of the course. I was asked to approve a course without any information about that course, except for the cost. That was unacceptable to me, and I went straight back and asked for the information about the course. 6 days later, not having heard, I chased up the officers. So any delay isn't by the group leaders, and I don't see why we should be penalised and for poor administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. Members, as I've said before, I shall now take a vote on the amendment as put forward by Councillor Weston and seconded by Councillor Wootton. And for benefit of doubt, I shall read that out again. 1, that the current arrangements for funding attendance for individual members of the council at external training or conferences be confirmed with the addition of the requirement for the member to provide feedback, bracket, either written or verbal, close bracket, within 3 months of attending to the rest of the council as follows. That an amount of up to 1,500 be identified each year out of the member training budget for individual members to be able to request attendance at external conferences stroke training courses, the allocation of such training to be subject to the agreement of the chairman of the Standards Committee and the chairman of the Standards Committee Working Group. The reason for refusal or acceptance would be on the basis of the benefit to this council and financial considerations. Members, I shall now take a vote, which will be a roll call of names. When I call your name, could you please let me know whether you wish to have a recorded vote for or against the substantive motion? Councillor Mrs Belton.
Thank you. No recorded vote and for the motion.
Councillor Mrs Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and for the motion.
Councillor Connell.
For a recorded vote, please, Chair, and against.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Carter.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Carter.
Thank you. Recorded vote, please, and against.
Thank you. Myself, no recorded vote and for the motion. Councillor Efty.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
Recorded vote and against the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Hazelwood.
No recorded vote and against.
Councillor Hookway.
Recorded vote and against the amended motion.
Councillor Mr Hoy.
Recorded vote and against the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
Recorded vote and against.
Councillor Mr Lucas Gill.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Lumley.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mason.
For a recorded vote, against the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs McPherson.
No recorded vote and for the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Merrick.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
No recorded vote and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Pavlin.
No and for. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Smith.
No recorded vote for.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No recorded vote for.
Councillor Stanley.
A recorded vote and against.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe.
No recorded vote and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Webb.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Weston.
No recorded vote and for, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Recorded vote, please, Chairman, and against the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
For recorded vote and against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wootton.
No recorded vote and for, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, that motion has been carried. There will be a recorded vote. There were 23 votes for and 11 against. Thank you, members.
Chairman, with your permission, if I may.
Councillor Wootton, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I suggest following that will speed up the processing, but at the same time, administratively, could I ask that for any courses that are agreed for members, the Chairman of Standards and of the Standards Committee Working Group do at least pay the courtesy of letting all group leaders know who they have approved to attend a course. I think that's an administrative factor which would actually be helpful for group leaders. It makes sense to me.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Members, we shall now take recommendation 2 on that.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Councillor Weston.
We've got to agree. We've got to agree the new substantive motion, Chairman.
Yes.
Chairman, may I make a statement of correction, please? I quoted 6 days from the officer responding. It was in fact 15. My apologies for misleading. Thank you.
You're muted, Chairman.
Members, we shall now vote on the substantive motion which I previously read out. Do you wish me to read it out again? I shall do so, just in case. This is now the substantive motion and we are voting on this one. That the current arrangements for funding attendance for individual members of the council at external training or conferences be confirmed with the addition of the requirement for the member to provide feedback, bracket, either written or verbal, close bracket, within 3 months of attending to the rest of the council as follows. That the amount of up to 1,500 be identified each year out of the member training budget for individual members to be able to request attendance at external conferences / training courses. The allocation of such training to be subject to the agreement of the chairman of the Standards Committee and the chairman of the Standards Committee Working Group. The reason for refusal or acceptance would be on the basis of the benefit to this council and financial considerations. Members, you know the format now. When I call your name, please indicate whether you wish to have a recorded vote, you are for or against that motion. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Connell.
Sorry, I was on mute, Chair. Apologies. No recorded vote, abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No recorded vote and abstain.
Thank you. Myself, no recorded vote and for. Councillor Efty.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves.
Recorded vote and abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Mr. Hoy.
I believe Councillor Hoy has left the meeting.
Councillor Mr. Hoy.
He's had to leave the meeting, Chairman.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Mr. Hoy. Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote for the motion.
Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Recorded vote and against.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Merrick.
No and for.
Councillor Milne.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Mrs. Paveling.
No and for. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and for.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote for.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Steptoe.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Ward.
No and for, Chairman.
Councillor Webb.
No and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Weston.
No recorded vote and for, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, recorded vote and against, please, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wilson.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Wootton.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Hoy. Can I have your vote, please?
He's left the meeting.
What's the matter?
He's left the meeting.
Ah, okay. I understand Councillor Hoy has left the meeting. Members, I shall come back to you. Members, that motion has been passed. 25 votes for, 2 against, 6 abstentions, and there will be no recorded vote. Thank you, members. Members, we shall now take recommendation 2. Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like
Chairman,
to...
sorry to interrupt, but I believe I had my hand up first here.
Who is speaking?
Councillor Steptoe.
Is that case? Was that the case?
Can't tell, but
Councillor Steptoe, I can't tell who was first. I will ask, you'll come in straight away. I'll ask Councillor Weston to proceed. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman. Councillor Mike Steptoe might say the same as what I'm saying, but I'll just check anyway. I want to move the following amendment to recommendation 2, please, Chairman. In the first sentence, can we delete the word similar to that of the Development Committee training and insert mandatory, please? The second and third sentences stay the same, and delete the 4th and the 5th sentences. A further course or one-to-one training on both subjects to be offered if other capacity permits or externally sourced, if suitable. Details of further courses to be determined by the Chairman of the Standards Committee and the Chairman of the Working Group. And the final sentence to be amended to read, members of the Licensing and Appeals Committee must attend licensing and appeals training each municipal year by the end of September. I can read that again, Chairman, if some of the members didn't understand what I was asking for.
Chairman, if I may.
Come back to you, Councillor Weston. Councillor Steptoe.
Chairman, I'm happy to second that because in essence, that's basically what I was going to suggest. But I am a little perturbed. Several times during the course of the first item that you were talking about on this, you had come to me and I said several times that I wanted a point of clarification and then to come back. So I feel a little bit aggrieved that I wasn't given that opportunity to bring forward what I was going to suggest. But having said that, I will second Councillor Weston's motion.
I apologise for not coming back to you, Councillor Steptoe. Right, we've got a proposer and a seconder, members. Does anybody wish to speak on those amendments? For the sake of clarity, I shall read out the amended motion as put forward by Councillor Weston and seconded by Councillor Steptoe. That Licensing and Appeals Committee training be mandatory. 1 course to be offered for licensing training, bracket daytime and evening, close bracket. 1 course to be offered for taxi appeals training, bracket daytime and evening, close bracket. Members of the Licensing and Appeals Committee must attend licensing and appeals training each municipal year by the end of September. Does anybody wish to have any questions on that? Thank you, members.
no hands. Oh, hold on. Who's that? Christine Mason. That's Mrs. Mason.
Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sometimes wonder if I attend different meetings to other members. It's very hard to understand why this has been put forward when the monitoring officers very clearly told us why it couldn't be done. The training for licensing and appeals is not for the committee, it is for the members of the committee that serve on hearings. And they have to be trained. The licensing committee members do not have to receive training. And this seems to cause a lot of confusion between members. I would like the monitoring officer to clarify this, because I don't really think it should be, I should have to clarify it again when it's been clarified to the committee by an officer. I don't see how they can insist that members of a committee assist training that is not actually for that committee, is for an activity that comes under that committee. So perhaps the monitoring officer can clarify and advise on the advice that she gave us last time. Thank you.
Mason. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just reiterate what Councillor Mrs Mason has said. That was actually said to us by the officer. Yeah.
Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. If I remember correctly, the Angela Law said that the committee doesn't have to be trained, but all members for the panels must be drawn from the committees. And if the committee, if there's not enough members have been trained to sit on the licensing board, they would have to sit on the licensing board. And if it went to appeal, the judge could ask, have all the members been trained who are sitting on the licensing board? And if one hasn't been trained, it's an excuse to be chucked out and lose an appeal. That's why I think this should be mandatory. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gooding.
Thank you, Chairman. As the Chairman of Licensing and Appeals Committee, I fully endorse the amendment put forward by Councillor Weston, and on the same grounds as what Councillor Efty has just put forward himself. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Gooding. Councillor Steptoe, did you wish to come back? You're muted, Councillor Steptoe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to first of all clarify my hand is coming up because, again, on 3 occasions, I know I put my hand up before the other people had put them up. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I'm a bit concerned. But the point I wanted to make was that the pool of the people that will attend the appeals committee are drawn from the members of the licensing committee. And because very often when these appeals are heard, we are talking of the livelihood of a taxi driver, of a business, and it will have a great effect. Many years ago, this function was conducted by a justice of the peace or a magistrate. It was passed over to the councils some time ago. So I do feel that this is still a quasi-legal issue and can have an extremely great effect on somebody that may lose an appeal or may lose a judgment. So I strongly recommend that it has to be, the members have to be trained, although if you attend a licensing committee meeting, Councillor Mason is correct, you don't necessarily need to be trained with that. But for the officers to be able to draw on the pool of members to attend the appeals committee, if we make that any smaller, it becomes more and more difficult for those officers to be able to do it. So that is the reason that I feel that it should be for all of the members of the licensing committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ionu.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to, if it's possible, for the monitoring officer, Angela Law, to just clarify to the members exactly what was stated to the members of the licensing board before I make a decision.
Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. It does make me wonder why we have some of these committees if, you know, the committees are meant to discuss matters like this within them and come to a conclusion within those committees and then bring their recommendations to the council. And then suddenly this is all being altered at a full council meeting. It doesn't seem to be appropriate, really. But my point about this is, as a licensed taxi driver, if I was on the licensing committee, I might be placed on the licensing committee and I'd be able to hear matters regarding licensing, but I wouldn't be able to participate in any appeals. So there'd be little point in me taking training for appeals because I couldn't sit on any appeals. So would that mean that the mandatory situation with regard to the training would actually prevent me from participating on the committee about the other aspects of which that committee is formed? Thank you. I'd like to have an answer from Angela Law in relation to that matter, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. One point I'd like to make is that a full council can change the recommendations of any committee, Councillor Hookway. Angela Law, if I could ask you to comment on the points raised by members.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, one moment, Chairman.
Angela, can you hear me?
She's getting feedback. Give her a moment.
Chairman, members, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Chairman, Councillor Mason, Councillor FD and Councillor Steptoe is correct in what they say that to take part in a licensing appeal or Hackney carriage appeal, you know, you should have the training. However, the amendment here is about whether the training should be mandatory, and that actually is a decision for the members. So whilst the members are correct, the decision around what requirements you members want for training is really a decision for members tonight.
Thank you, Angela Law. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if all this conversation is moot anyway. How many times has the Appeals Committee not been able to sit because there hasn't been enough trained people on there in recent times?
On a couple of occasions.
Angela Law, can you answer that question?
Sorry, Chairman, can we have the question asked again?
Councillor Eaves, could you repeat your question, please?
I'm listening to all this conversation and I don't recall having heard of any appeals board, what do you call it, not the committee, having been cancelled because you did not have enough people qualified to attend the panel. Can you advise of any meetings that have been cancelled in recent times because there were not enough qualified people available?
We only had 4 people at one point. There's one occasion.
Angela Law, can you respond to that, please?
Yes, yes, yes.
Angela Law, can you respond to that,
Sorry,
please?
Chairman. Can you hear me? I'm actually using the Vice Chairman's mic. I believe there was one occasion where a member had to be called in last minute and rearrange their own personal commitments because we didn't have enough panel members.
But that panel wasn't cancelled.
Well, it wasn't because the member was able to rearrange her personal commitments.
But that would happen under normal circumstances anyway.
Not necessarily as chairman. But I think we only had 4 people that were trained anyway.
Councillor Steptoe, you're indicating you wish to speak, but you have already spoken. But as seconder of the motion, you have the right to speak later in the debate. Do you wish to speak now?
I'll wait till later in the debate, Chairman.
Councillor Wotton.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know, I may have got this wrong, but I've sort of picked up a perception that there seems to be resistance by certain people who sit on the licensing committee to be trained. Now, if I sat on a committee, I'd want to understand, even if it was sitting on the periphery of the actual hearings, I'd want to be fully understanding the subject on which I was sitting on a committee for. I totally get the fact that you want a maximum pool, and I don't understand, perhaps I'm missing something, but I would actually want to be fully trained in the subject of the committee that I was actually sitting on. This isn't a punishment. This is actually wanting to help people so that they fully understand the subject. I don't get it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points when listening to the debate. There was mention of why committees, when we come to full council, and then amendments are made to change recommendations. Can I say there has always been a healthy and good debate at standards, but we have never always been in agreement around this thing about mandatory training. So you also need to look at the fact that there are 8 members of the Standards Committee. That's 8 members putting this forward. Yes, it should come before full council. Full council is 37 members. So just bear that in mind. And I'm listening to why I agree with Councillor Wotton. Why would people not want this training? I sit on licensing and appeals. It's probably one of the most difficult roles because, as somebody has already mentioned, you are handling people's livelihoods. You're making that decision. Now, I want to have the best training. Somebody may argue that it's not a legal requirement, but I can tell you it's a moral one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. McPherson. Councillor Mrs. Weston, you're indicating you wish to speak, but you're the
yeah. Can I just say, Chairman, I agree with what Councillor Mike Steptoe has. Sorry, can you hear me? I agree with what Councillor Mike Steptoe has said about all the legalities, and there was a year. There was only 4 of us that were trained to be able to attend a licensing hearing to do with that. And it was me personally who had to give up my leave to attend it. Otherwise, the person who had to come forward would not have been able to obviously go through the licensing. So I fully understand and agree what Councillor Mike Steptoe has said, and also what Councillor Wotton. So I still believe that this should be mandatory, and what everybody else has said on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor.
Chairman, point of order, Chairman. I asked a specific question of the officer in relation to a matter of her advice in relation to this committee. I haven't had the answer. I just wonder if it's possible that I could actually get an answer so I can understand what my personal position would be in relation to this committee. As I say, I'm a licensed taxi driver. I can't participate in appeals. So therefore, if I don't have training for appeals hearings, does that prevent me from being on this committee completely? Thank you.
Angela Law, can you respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In relation to Councillor Hookway, he would still be able to sit on alcohol licensing appeals. Obviously, it will depend on whether he has an interest in the application, but with regards to any hackney carriage, any taxi licensing appeals, it would be decided on a case-by-case basis as to whether he would have an interest in the case. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he can't sit on any of the appeals.
Thank you, Angela. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, you know, some of the confusion that's come up is because of the amalgamation of both of these committees. Originally, they were separate and there was separate training. And to my mind, I believe that it should have been mandatory on both of those committees at the time. The fact that it's now been brought together so that all members of that committee are both licensing and appeals, I fully agree that it should be mandatory across the board. And irrespective, I found in the past there were great difficulty actually going on to the licensing committee because of people who are not necessarily appropriately trained at the time. And that was always a problem. And I can remember Sonia literally pulling her hair out because she couldn't get people on some of these committees. So I feel it is really essential that it's mandatory, people are fully trained, and I have to agree with the various comments made, how important it is to the livelihoods of those people who are actually in front of these committees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Mrs Mason, you indicating you wish to speak, but you have already spoken on this item. So I shall allow Councillor Williams, who wishes to speak at this conjuncture. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've been, as being a member of a previous, last year I was a member of the committee, I can't believe that this amendment is even being contested. The consequences of the decisions made can have such a significant impact on someone's livelihood. They should be trained. I'm sorry, I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Loreen Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. I completely agree with what's already been said about having this training as mandatory. I'm on the committee. I've also sat on appeals, and without proper training, I believe I would have found it hard to make the correct decisions. This training should be mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Steptoe and Councillor Weston, do you wish to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I may.
Chairman.
Councillor Weston first, please.
Sorry, no, Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Steptoe then, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, a number of things have been mentioned there. Yes, the Licensing Appeals Committee were separate committees some years ago. Those that have been on the council for some time will remember we did have, for example, one licensing application or licensing appeals application of a local hotel, it was, where it was so complicated we actually had to have people in reserve if they'd have fallen out of somebody who was taken ill during the course of the appeal process, a little bit like the courts do with a jury service. So that does happen from time to time when there is a very big and serious matter. The monitoring officer also mentioned that the appeals does listen to other appeals as well. There is licensing as well as the taxes. And of course, with the licensing side of the committee, if the licensing committee itself is looking at recommending policy to the council, then surely those people that are on that committee need to have an understanding of the effects of the policy they may be looking at considering. So I cannot understand why people do not want to have the training. It is a very difficult job when the appeals committees have to sit during the course of the day. People are committed to work, people are committed to holidays. Okay, this particular conjunction in our lives, that's quite slightly different. But on most cases, it has been a difficult job for the officers phoning round, trying to get enough people to come forward to actually be able to serve on the appeals committee. So I can't endorse this strongly enough to say that this must be a mandatory obligation of those members that are on the Licensing Appeals Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Members, I shall now take a vote on the amended motion as put forward by Councillor Weston, seconded by Councillor Steptoe. And for the avoidance of doubt, I shall read that out again. That licensing and appeals committee training be mandatory. One course to be offered for licensing training, bracket daytime and evening, close bracket. One course to be offered for taxi appeals training, bracket daytime and evening, close bracket. Members of the licensing and appeals committee must attend licensing and appeals training each municipal year by the end of September. Members, there'll be a vote by roll call. You know the format. Please, when I call your name, indicate how you wish to vote. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
Thank you. For a recorded vote and for the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Connell.
4 and 4, please, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Carter.
Yeah, 4 and 4, please. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. For recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Myself, no recorded vote and for the motion. Councillor Efty.
For recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
For recorded vote and for the motion.
Councillor Hookway. Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
Recorded vote and for.
Councillor Mr. Lucas Gill. My apologies.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Recorded vote, abstain.
Councillor Mr. McPherson.
Recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Pavlin.
No and 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Councillor Sperring.
4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
4 and abstain.
Councillor Steptoe.
4 and 4.
Councillor Ward.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Weston.
4 and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Chairman, 4 and 4.
Councillor Wilson.
4 and 4.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you, members. I'll come back to you. Members, there will be a recorded vote and the motion, the amendment has been passed. 430, abstain 3, none against, with a recorded vote. Thank you, members. Members, we shall now vote on the substantive motion as put forward by Councillor Weston and seconded by Councillor Steptoe. Again, when I call your name, could you please indicate how you wish to vote? You all know the format. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Connell.
4 and 4, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Carter.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Carter.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't sure if my mic was on. No recorded vote and abstain.
Thank you myself. No recorded vote and for the motion. Councillor Efty.
A recorded vote and for the motion.
Councillor Eaves.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Gooding.
4 and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazelwood.
4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and abstain.
Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
Recorded vote and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Lumley.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mason.
No recorded vote, abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Macpherson.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Pavlin.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Councillor Sperring.
4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
4 and abstain, please.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe.
4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward. I'll come back to you, Councillor.
Yeah, pardon, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. 4 and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Weston.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4 and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 4 and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
4 and abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. 4 and 4.
Thank you. Members, I'll come back to you. Members, there will be a recorded vote and the motion has been passed. 28 votes for, 5 abstentions, none against. Thank you, members. Members, we shall now, there is a final recommendation on this item. Recommendation 3, that suggested guidelines for the organisation of premises licensing hearings and taxi licensing hearings be as attached to the report. Members, there will be a vote by roll call of names. You know the format. Thank you, members. Councillor Mrs Belton.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Butcher.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cannell.
No and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mr Carter.
No and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mrs Carter.
Thank you. No and abstain.
Myself, no and 4. Councillor Efty.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves.
No and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mrs Gooding.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
No and 4.
Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Macpherson.
No and against, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Merrick.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Pavlin.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley. Councillor
No,
Stanley.
no and abstain.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Weston.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. That's no and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
No and 4.
And Councillor Wootton.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, members. Members, there will not be a recorded vote. The motion has been passed. 30 votes for, 1 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you. Members, I shall now take item 8.4 of the agenda, a report on the Planning Policy Committee. 1, Essex Coast Recreational Disturbance Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy, RAMS,
We're out of
Supplementary
time.
Planning Document, SPD 2020. Is somebody speak trying?
We're out of time. The standing orders are 2.5 hours, unless I'm much mistaken.
9:20.
We are still in time, Mrs Mason.
So I think it's 10:20. It shows you what a long meeting it's been. Thank you. Apologies for the mistake. Thank you.
As I was saying, members, I shall repeat it. I shall now take item 8.4, report of the Planning Policy Committee. 1, Essex Coast Recreational Disturbance Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy, bracket RAMS, close bracket, Supplementary Planning Document, bracket SPD, close bracket 2020. Councillor Sperring, Chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, will introduce this report. Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will see, this is a very lengthy and in-depth report. Officers gave us a substantial overview of this situation. It effectively is a balanced report assessing with all interested parties how we can protect the coast and taking account of other requirements that are made on it. For example, recreation, this sort of thing. Even if we do not join this group, Chairman, which I strongly recommend we should, that does not negate our legal responsibilities in this area. And I therefore recommend that the Council resolves the 2 items that are included on page 8.4.1. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to second that, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, you're muted.
Members, are there any questions? Councillor Steptoe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if I need to declare an interest in this, as I sit on a committee, Coastal Committee and the Environmental Agency Committee on behalf of County. So I'm not sure if I need to declare an interest.
Angela Law, can you comment on that, please?
Chairman, that will be noted. Noted.
That's been noted, Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Williams. Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I also sit on the Essex Flood Forum, so perhaps that should be noted too. Thank you.
Angela Law, if you can note that as well from Councillor Williams, that interest. Thank you. Councillor Gooding.
If you could just note that I represent Bradwell for Rochford District Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gooding. Councillor Ward, do you wish to come back?
Yes, thank you. Just in regards to the Flood Forum, I'm also a member of that. And I believe Councillor Rowe is also a member.
I was just going to say that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Rowe. Any other questions?
Chairman. Sorry, apologies for interrupting. A member of the Flood Forum.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Lumley. Are there any questions?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Hazelwood.
I'm a member of the Crouch Harbour Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelwood. Any other interests to be noted, members? No? Are there any questions, members?
No, no one's.
Okay. Members, there are 3 recommendations put forward by Councillor Sperring and seconded by Councillor Ward. I intend, members, to take these recommendations together.
Chairman, if I may, there's only 2 on this item.
My apologies.
There's only 2 recommendations on this particular item, that the Essex Coastal RAM Supplementary Planning Document SPD set out at Appendix B be adopted, and that the you said we did report adoption statement set out in Appendix A and C respectively be published on the council website.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. As I was saying, members, I propose to take those recommendations together, and I will assume agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon.
No.
No one's indicating, members. Therefore, when I call your name, please indicate how you wish to vote. And again, you know the procedure. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
Thank you. No and 4.
Councillor Cornell.
No and 4, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Carter.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, 4.
Councillor, can you give us again, Mrs. Carter, please?
She's on mute.
Councillor Mrs. Carter, can you give your vote again?
She's on mute.
I'll come back to you, Mrs. Carter. Myself, no recorded vote and 4. Councillor FD.
No recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
No and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Mason.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Pavlin.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Webb.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
Chairman, that's no and 4.
Councillor Wilson.
No and 4.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Carter, would you please clarify your wish and how you wish to vote, please?
Thank you. My apologies. It's no and 4.
Thank you. Come back to you, members. Members, there's no recorded vote, and the vote was unanimous in favour of the recommendations. Thank you, members. Members, we shall now take item 2 on agenda item 8.4, Essex Coast Recreational Disturbance Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy (RAMS) Partnership Agreement 2020-2023. Councillor Sperring, once again, Chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, will introduce this report.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, another lengthy report that was given the once over and guidance explained to a number of us by our officers very comprehensively. Effectively, Chairman, this is a memorandum effectively of understanding between all the interested parties to continue working on the basis of what they've already achieved for the coastal protections, etc. And that this applies from 2020 to 2023 and will share the cost between all interested parties, Chairman. Thank you. I therefore recommend that the recommendations as items 4.1, 2 and 3 be accepted by the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Do you have a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Ward.
Yes, I'd like to second that, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
Chairman, you're on mute, please.
Thank you. Members, once again, I propose that we will vote on these recommendations together, and I will assume your agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon.
Okay.
Nobody has done so, so we shall take all 3 recommendations together and I shall read them out. 1, that the Council enters into a partnership agreement set out in Appendix 2 and Appendix A. 2, that authority be delegated to the Assistant Director, Place and Environment to discharge the Council's responsibilities under the partnership agreement in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning. And 3, that it is agreed that the annual costs of around 3,500 be met from the existing local development framework reserve. Members, please indicate when I call your name how you wish to vote. Councillor Mrs Belton.
No recorded vote, 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Cornell.
No and 4, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Mr Carter.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No and I abstain. Thank you.
Myself, no recorded vote and 4. Councillor FD.
No recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Councillor Eaves.
Vote and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Gooding.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway,
No and 4.
Councillor Hudson,
No and 4.
Councillor Ione,
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lumley,
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Mason,
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs. McPherson,
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick,
No and 4.
Councillor Milne,
No and 4.
Councillor Pavlin,
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe,
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
thank you. Councillor Mrs. Shaw,
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith,
No recorded vote, 4.
Councillor Sperring,
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley,
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe,
No and 4.
Councillor Ward,
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Webb,
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Weston,
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson,
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams,
Chairman, no and 4.
thank you. Councillor Wilson,
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wotton,
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
members, those three recommendations have been agreed. No recorded vote. 32 votes for, 1 abstention, none against. Thank you, members. Members, I would like to move a motion without notice according to Council Procedure Rule 14 bracket N close bracket to extend this meeting beyond 2.5 hours for as long as practical in order to complete the business. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chairman.
I'll second it.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Weston. Members, we shall take a vote on that. Please indicate how you wish to vote when I call your name. Councillor Mrs. Belton,
No recorded vote, 4.
Councillor Mrs. Butcher,
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Connell,
No and 4, thank you, Chair.
thank you. Councillor Mr. Carter,
No and 4, thank you.
thank you. Councillor Mrs. Carter,
Thank you. No and 4.
myself, no recorded vote and 4. Councillor Efty,
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves,
No and 4, although I would like to advise that if it goes on beyond 10:30, I will have to leave.
Councillor Mrs. Gooding,
No and 4, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hazelwood,
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway,
Thank you, Chairman. Before I vote, I'd like to ask that a comfort break take place at some time fairly soon, and that whether the chairman's actually going to put a time on this as to whether it gets beyond a certain time as to whether we have another vote. Thank you.
it's as soon as practical, Councillor Hookway, so the timing will be monitored depending on how we progress. Let me take this vote, complete this vote, and I'll consider the comfort break. Councillor Hudson. Oh, Councillor Hookway, how do you wish to vote?
Well, I'll abstain on that basis. Thank you.
For both?
Yes,
Recorded
Chairman.
votes? Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No recorded vote, and I will give my apologies at 10. I will be leaving then, so obviously I'm against the extension. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Macpherson.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Paveling.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Shaw.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
No recorded vote and 4, but I shall be leaving at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Councillor Ward.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Webb.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Weston.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wilson.
No and 4.
Councillor Wotton.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I can come back to you.
Let's agree.
Members, that motion has been passed. No recorded vote. 31 for, 1 abstention and 1 against. Thank you, members. Members, as requested by Councillor Hawkway, I shall adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for a comfort break. I shall come back to you in 5 minutes, members. Thank you.
Oh, oh. Oh, this is fun. Adrian?
Remember, we're still being recorded.
Members, there's still one or two members to come back to us. Hopefully it won't take too long.
Oh, where's my glasses gone?
Members, I shall reconvene the meeting and take item 8 bracket 5 close bracket report of the review committee, regulation of investigatory powers Act 2000 bracket RIPA close bracket. Councillor Sperring, Vice Chairman of the Review Committee, will introduce this report. Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will be aware, this is basically a very routine item that we bring to full council. Most of the, I would say most, all the amendments that are in the policy are set out on our behalf. The areas where we become involved is where individuals' names may be changed for whatever reason. And basically, Chairman, as far as I'm aware, I don't think the District Council has ever actioned on this statutory power we have, but we are obliged to review it. Therefore, on that basis, I would agree that the recommendation that the amendments to the Council's RIPA policy set out in section 6 of Appendix 1 be approved by the Council, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Is there a seconder, members?
I can second that, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Members, are there any questions on this item?
No hands.
I can not see anybody indicating they wish to have a question. We will therefore take.
You've muted again, Chairman.
Members, I cannot see anybody wishing to speak on this item. We shall therefore take a vote on the recommendation by roll call. When I call your name, you know the procedure. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Cannell.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you. Recorded vote and 4. Thank you.
Myself, no recorded vote and 4. Councillor Efty.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Eaves.
No and 4, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Mason.
A no and for the motion, thank you.
Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Paveling.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Councillor Ward.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, please, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wilson.
No and 4.
And Councillor Wootton.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, members. Members, there will not be a recorded vote. Unanimously approved. Thank you, members. Members, we now take item 8.6, a report of the Investment Board. Maximising the potential of Cherry Orchard Jubilee Country Park. Councillor Steptoe, Chairman of the Investment Board, will introduce this item. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say there's two recommendations, two lots of recommendations on this paper. We'll take them individually, I assume. It's fairly self-explanatory. Looking at the potential of Cherry Orchard Park to maximise our returns from that, looking at what events can be put into there and the various other things. If there should our members have any questions, I'm sure I'm sure Marcus Hutton will be more than happy to answer any questions. But I'd like to move the recommendations as shown, item 2 on page 8.6.1 to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Steptoe? Councillor Ward. You're muted, Councillor Ward.
I do apologise, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Any questions, members? There are no people indicating they wish to ask questions. I therefore propose, members, that we vote on these recommendations together, and I will assume your agreement unless you click on the raised hand icon. No such indications, members. Therefore, when I call your name, can you please indicate how you wish to vote? Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No recorded vote and for the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. No recorded vote and for the recommendation.
Councillor Connell.
No and 4, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Carter.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No and 4.
Thank you. Myself, no recorded vote and for the motion. Councillor Efty.
4 and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves.
No and 4, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
Sorry, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Hudson.
No and 4.
Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Mason.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No and 4.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Pavlin.
No and 4. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
No and 4, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote. 4.
Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Councillor Ward.
No and 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
That's no and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wilson.
No and 4.
Councillor Wootton.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Unanimous, no recorded vote.
Members, as those two recommendations have been passed unanimously, there's no recorded vote. Thank you, members. Members, I shall now take item 2 of this item, the Council's local authority trading companies. Councillor Steptoe, Chairman of the Investment Board, will introduce this report. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, again, it's fairly self-explanatory. The documentation is fairly self-explanatory. There was a question at the Investment Board meeting as to whether we should consider 2 directors of the holding company. Officers are looking into the practicalities of that, and etc. Will be reporting back to the Investment Board in due course. I would like to remind members that if they do wish to ask any questions on the appendices, that the council will have to go into private and confidential because of the confidentiality of the documents. But if there are any questions, Dawn Tribe is here this evening. I'm sure that she'll be able to answer any questions. On that basis, Chairman, I will move the recommendation at 4.1 on page 8.6.1.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Ward.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second that recommendation and proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
Gone on mute again,
You're on
Chairman.
mute again.
Sorry. Members, as mentioned by Councillor Steptoe, there are 2 exempt appendices to the report. And before I open this up to questions, please be reminded that if you do need to make reference to either of the exempt appendices, it will be necessary to move a recommendation to exclude the press and public. Are there any members wishing to ask a question?
No.
There is no indication of such, members. The recommendation then, as Councillor Steptoe said, there is one that the accounts of the LATCOs for the financial year 2019/2020 set out in the exempt report B be approved. The voting will be by roll call, and again, you know the procedure, members, when I call your name. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
No recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Connell.
No recorded vote, 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mr. Carter.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No and 4.
Thank you, myself. No recorded vote and 4. Councillor Efty.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
No and 4. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ionu.
No recorded vote and for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Lumley.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mason.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs. McPherson.
No and 4. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Paveling. Mrs. Paveling.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
No and 4. Sorry, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote, 4.
Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Councillor Ward.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No and 4. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Wilson,
No and 4.
Councillor Wotton,
Thank you, Chair. No and 4. Thank you.
Unanimous.
thank you, members. That's unanimous in favour of the recommendation and there's no recorded vote. Members, I shall now take item 9 on the agenda, report on urgent decisions. Is this noted, members? I will assume agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon.
No hands.
There's no such indication. That's been agreed. Thank you, members.
Chairman, you're muted again.
Sorry. Agenda item 10, report of the leader on the work of the executive.
Chairman, you keep muting. Chairman, you keep muting yourself. I'm not too sure why.
I'm not muting myself. I don't know why it's happening. Councillor Wotton will provide a verbal update to Council on the work of the executive since the last full Council meeting. Councillor Wotton. Councillor Wotton.
Councillor Wotton, you are muted.
Yeah, I think that's another pound in the box. Apologies. Right, I'm pleased to provide an update on the work of the executive. Members, the meeting has already received the minutes of the meetings of the executive since our last full council meeting on 14th of July. I'm happy to provide an update for information purposes on the business dealt with by the executive since then. At its meeting on the 2nd of September, the executive agreed the Q1 2020-21 revenue budget and capital position, approved a drawdown of £20,000 from the council's earmarked reserves towards an appraisal of the options for the delivery of the council's grounds maintenance and street cleansing services, including the potential delivery of a joint contract by GGT. It approved the award of a new materials recovery facilities contract to Viridor from the 4th of November. And at its meeting on the 7th of October, the executive agreed to the council's participation in a South Essex no-use empty scheme subject to a joint bid for getting building fund financing from the South East Local Enterprise Partnership being successful. It agreed the investment of up to £17,000 in match funding towards loans to develop suitable empty properties identified within the Rockford district area. Moving on to portfolio holder decisions which have been taken, it was agreed that the closure of the ICT migration project, agreed the allocation of voluntary sector grants for this financial year, responded to 2 government planning consultations on changes to the current planning system following the white paper, and designated care leavers as a group of council taxpayers defined by a common set of circumstances for the purposes of the discretionary reduction in council tax liability policy for the current financial year. So that completes my report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Members, is that noted?
Yeah.
No hands indicating otherwise. Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Members, that has been noted. I'll now take agenda item 11, motions on notice, of which there are none, members. Agenda item 12, update on the Association of South Essex Local Authorities, ASALA, and local government reorganisation. Councillor Wotton will introduce this report. Councillor Wotton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to introduce this report. Soon after I became leader, I promised Council that at the earliest opportunity I would bring a report on the work of the Association of South Essex Local Authorities, ASALA, to members. I am grateful to Sean Scrutton, Managing Director, for the preparation of this report. This report is the start of what will in future be regular reporting to members on the work of ASALA. When I became leader, I confessed to being unclear what the benefits of membership of Acela were for Rochford District Council. No secret that I was concerned about the transparency of decision making when only a memorandum of understanding is in place and accountability for funds that Rochford District Council had invested in the venture. I was also concerned that communication from Acela to date, frankly, has been poor. I've made it a priority to address these issues and am pleased to report progress is being made. I am supportive of collaboration between the 6 Acela authorities, made all the more impressive, especially because there are different political affiliations coming together and striving with a common objective for the greater benefit and good of South Essex. South Essex has historically been overlooked for investment compared to authorities in the north of the county. The Acela Growth Prospectus is something I can stand behind and use to lobby government. It is a good piece of work which clearly articulates the opportunities for South Essex, of which the district would surely benefit. Whilst I and the administration were absolutely clear that the growth prospectus should not be the basis on which governance for the component authorities is decided under the reform agenda, especially as central government have deferred the publication of the white paper on this subject, it is nevertheless a matter which will inevitably become topical at some point again in the future. Being part of Acela will put us in a good position to know neighbour authority thinking and to deal and take an informed view in the best interest of the Rochford district and its residents. A great deal of assurance has been provided to me, which increases my confidence in this joint working opportunity, that the underlying administration of Acela, its own governance and its communications needs further work. I believe I can do this from within, having set the wheels in motion already. But I don't just expect members to take it from me. I will promise to bring update reports back at least twice a year about the progress being made by Acela. I'm convinced that Acela, done the right way, can be a force for good, and that Rochford District Council will benefit from participation, but only if we can address those things which undermine members' confidence and get in the way of doing business. Thank you, Chairman. And with that, unless there's any questions, we'll turn to item 10, but I see that there is a hand from Councillor Eads.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. I read the report with a good deal of interest. It's a very comprehensive report. There are a few questions and a few points I'd like to raise as a result of that. 7.1 states that we'll be paying £60,000 as a subscription to Acela yearly. This is allowed in our next year's budget, or shows in our next year's budget. Could you remind me of when the council agreed to that figure? That's my first question. Skipping down to the attached report, on the glossy report produced by Acela, going to page 12.9, Homes and Places. The preceding reports are very convincing and do sound very good, but I quote from the Homes and Places report, in quotes, put in place a complete suite of up-to-date local plans supported by the South Essex plan, close quote. My question there is, what comes first, the district local plans or the South Essex plan? That is quite important to understand, because it's going to indicate who is going to have priority in saying what we actually have to have building wise in our area. To continue, again, quoting from the same page, quotes, completely transform housing delivery in the region, close quotes, with another quote, commitment to a programme of strategic and tactical interventions, close quotes. Sounds very much like the decisions will be made by Acela, not RDC. That would mean that the people who voted for us to be in place would effectively have no voice in the housing delivery. We think it's bad now. If this is implemented in the form laid out in the report before us, my considered opinion is that RDC will have little power to object to schemes being implemented in our district should we disagree with any particular schemes. Another quote on the same page. Over the last 6 months, South Essex have been working with Homes England on a joint delivery programme. Close quote. My question there is, have RDC officers been involved in that work? If so, our officers will know the proposals for housing in the area because they will have been discussed according to this report. So I think it would be good business for the council to be updated on those proposals sooner rather than later. However, if we as RDC have not been involved, it would serve to underline the growing concerns over what seems to be shaping up to be bullying RDC into the project, as such, I, on behalf of my constituents, would have great difficulty in supporting the proposals going forward on that basis. Agreed, the project is highly ambitious, but as members representing our community, we should be asking ourselves, at what cost to the Rochford district? My fear is that due to the large areas of greenbelt in our district that other adjoining areas do not have, and in the light of the highly questionable changes to the planning system that are currently going through Parliament, the Rochford district will be forced to bear the brunt of any proposed developments through the Acela project and therefore lose its current status as a desirable rural area to live. I, for one, remain yet to be convinced on the overall benefits of this project will bring to the Rochford district. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Eads. Councillor Wootton, do you wish to comment on those points?
Thank you, Chairman. Clearly, that is a prepared statement with a number of issues raised in it. I have to say that I was not a leader at the time that the growth prospectus was prepared, but the document was, I believe, circulated 2 or 3 months ago, actually, prior to it being submitted. In respect of, I think, Councillor Eaves' first question, we pay into the Acela Group £60,000 a year. So far, we've paid 3 years subscriptions, which is £180,000. So that is, if you like, the cost of being a member of the Acela Group. In terms of the local plan will always take precedence over anything with Acela. You know, that is just simply the fact that it is our local plan. It is that which always will trump the Acela vision. The Acela vision is a bit of a long-term, you know, by definition of that growth prospectus. It's talking many years ahead. But I am actually going to ask the managing director, Sean Scrutton, if he has anything to add, because he was certainly part of the time when that growth prospectus was being put together, and he may have something to add to my comments.
Mr. Strutton, do you wish to comment?
Chairman, thank you. I suppose the key point I would make about the discussions that have taken place and are taking place with Homes England about investment in South Essex is that those relate to sites that are in the pipeline, as it were. It's not relating to future allocations at this stage. So it's a question of having a discussion with Homes England to see what investment can be brought from government to unlock the sites across South Essex and including in Rochford. And an example of that would be the Stanbridge Mills site, which is sitting waiting to be developed, using Homes England money to unlock the blockages and to bring forward those sites and contribute towards the housing in South Essex and in Rochford. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Strutton. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, if I heard Councillor Wootton correctly, there seems to be a number of matters which are still yet to be resolved in the structure of Acela. I'm concerned that there are still governance issues outstanding in relation to this organisation, and I would like for Councillor Wootton to try to get the governance matters resolved as soon as possible before any decisions which affect our district start to be made.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Councillor Woodson, would you like to comment on that?
Chairman, I think that's an absolutely fair point, and I think Acela itself would now acknowledge that it has gone as far as it can under the existing memorandum of understanding. It is not a decision-making body, and that is really where I have had some concerns that it was moving ahead as if it was speaking for authorities without the governance process in place and actually referring back to the authorities that they represent. So I think that's a perfectly fair point, and it's something that within Acela I'm certainly working to achieve with my leader colleagues, my other 5 leader colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Woodson. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I think, the point that Councillor Hookway makes is shared by the majority of members on our side, to be honest. I mean, that's why the big push was looking at really uncovering as much as we could in regards to what was going on. I admit I was part initially working with Councillor Cutmore, and I deputised for him on this. And I think the most important thing to realise with regard to Acela and how it came together, considering how different all the various districts are and boroughs within Acela, I would say that the cement that would be holding us together was the necessity to bring in infrastructure. And I think that was the most important thing that has kept us together. How do we get infrastructure into South Essex? Because this is the one thing that I'm constantly asked about by, local residents, and I'm sure all of us across the political divide, so to speak, are needing to get infrastructure into our district and into our area as quickly as possible. And we need to be able to facilitate that infrastructure. So, again, the governance issue is very important, how we go forward. And this is, how can I say, it's a very fluid situation in where we are trying to understand and come together between ourselves how we manage this. We've got a fantastic plan going forward. Basically, as Councillor Wooden, I think, has said, it's a fantastic shopping list of requirements we want. But ultimately, we have to find a good way of bringing us all together to be able to enable that plan to come together. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. Taking on board all the lovely ideas that have been highlighted, getting down to the nuts and bolts, when we recently started asking questions about governance, suddenly we found that we created a momentum that other groups joined us. We have prioritised creating or producing our local plan, as have all the other councils involved. The one item that came up time and time again from what Councillor Wooden came back with and conversations that we overheard, every council wanted to take responsibility for planning in their own areas, whether it be us, Thurrock, Southend or whatever. Nobody wanted to be part of some master plan. Yes, we need the infrastructure, but if you recall from the presentations we received, everybody was adamant that they controlled their own planning within their own district. I think we are better to work with this group, and I've been very cynical about the whole process. I don't think there's been very much accountability in the past. I think we're moving forward on that. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm aware, and Councillor Wood might correct me on this, at the moment, we haven't signed up to anything. And if we found that this was not working to the benefits of the district, and I don't think we'd be on our own, then the thing wouldn't progress. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a point that Councillor Eaves made on our green belt. We as a planning authority have no control over who puts in planning applications. So I feel it would be much better to be part of Acela. and not have those, if something comes forward, being done to us without having some say in it.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Members, I cannot see anybody else indicating they wish to speak.
Councillor Wootton.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to come back and sort of make the point that 3 months into my leadership, this is actually the first detailed report that we've considered on the work of Acela, but we're certainly not there yet. And I wanted a very open, transparent and honest position. So I do not want members in any way misled in thinking that everything in the garden of Acela is absolutely rosy. I've been quite clear that I want to be much better on the financial accountability, on the communication, on the governance, and all of those sides. So this is work in progress, and I'm not going to hide away from that. And I've been very, very clear with my Acela colleagues on that. But I do not want us to lose sight of the fact that this is a collaboration between 6 authorities that probably would not actually speak to each other in the way that Acela does work together. And we have got to recognise that the economic potential of South Essex is undersold at the present time. And this is a huge opportunity. If we manage to get the governance right, the funding, the accountability, the communication right, this is a huge opportunity for us to turn things around and really get huge benefits from Acela and other bodies that are lobbying for this part of Essex. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Members, there's no other member indicating they wish to speak. There are 2 recommendations for noting as set out at paragraph 10.1 of the report on page 12.3 as follows. 1, to note and support progress on the Acela growth and recovery plans as set out in the prospectus July 2020. And 2, to note and support the preparation of an evidence base to feed into deliberations on local government reorganisation following the publication of the Devolution and Local Recovery White Paper. Members, are they noted? I will assume your agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon.
Noted.
That's been noted, members. Thank you very much. Members, I shall now take agenda item 13, allocation of seats on committees. Miss Angela Law, Assistant Director, Legal and Democratic, will introduce this report. Miss Law.
Thank you, Chairman. The Council has a statutory duty by virtue of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989 to ensure that the appointments to committee reflect the proportion of total number of seats on the council held by each political group unless otherwise agreed. Following change, the political composition has been recalculated and the allocation of seats are in accordance with the Act. The new committee composition is set out in Appendix 1 and the nominations to the new composition is set out in the addendum to this report. Chairman, the recommendations are set out under paragraph 6 on page 13.2. However, Chairman, there's a slight amendment to recommendation 2 being that members be appointed to serve on committees for the remainder of the 2021 municipal year as detailed in the addendum to this report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Angela Law. Any questions, members?
No hands.
Members, there's no one indicating they wish to speak. Members, I propose that we vote on these recommendations together, and I will assume your agreement unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon. There's been no such indication, members. So when I call your name, please indicate how you wish to vote. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
No recorded vote and for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Connell.
No and for. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mr. Carter.
No and for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No and for.
Myself, no recorded vote and for the recommendations. Councillor FD.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
Recorded and for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Hudson.
No and 4.
Councillor Ionu. I'll come back to you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs McPherson.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Paveling.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote, 4.
Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Stanley.
He's not here.
Okay, he's gone. Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
No and 4, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Webb.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Williams.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Ionu. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson. My apologies, Councillor Wilson.
It's all right, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Ionu, are you around?
No.
I'm just looking to see, Councillor, is he still here? He is here.
Councillor Ionu, can you repeat your vote, please? Councillor Ionu?
Okay.
No, not to worry.
That's unanimous. Unanimously approved, Chairman, and no recorded vote.
Members, that's been passed. No recorded vote.
Unanimous.
Unanimous vote of 29-4. Thank you, members. Members, I shall now take item 14 on the agenda, council representation on the Bradwell B Community Forum. Miss Angela Law, Assistant Director, Legal and Democratic, will introduce the report. Angela Law.
Thank you, Chairman. The Bradwell B project is proposing to build a new nuclear power station at Bradwell-on-Sea and is establishing a community forum in order to help engage with the community and key organisations. An invitation to the Bradwell Power Generation Company Limited has been extended to the council to appoint one member and their substitute to attend meetings of the new Bradwell B Community Forum. It is anticipated the community forum will meet on a quarterly basis and intended to be a means to share information about the project and to facilitate questions and discussions and feedback. Chairman, we've received one nomination to the forum, set out in the addendum to this report. Chairman, there is a slight amendment to the recommendation to now state to appoint one member and one substitute member to the Bradwell B Community Forum as detailed in the addendum to the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Angela Law. Are there any members' questions?
Yeah.
None being indicated. Members, there's one recommendation as set out on paragraph 8.1 on page 14.2 of the report, that one member and one substitute member be appointed to the Bradwell B Community Forum as detailed in the addendum to the report. I will propose it from the chair. Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson's there.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably Councillor Wilson's
Members, voting will be by roll call of names. You know the procedure. Councillor Mrs Belton.
No recorded vote, 4.
Councillor Mrs Butcher.
No recorded vote and 4.
Councillor Connell.
No and 4, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mr Carter.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Carter.
Thank you, Chair. No recorded vote and 4.
Myself, no recorded vote and 4. Councillor Efty.
No recorded vote and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Eaves.
No recorded vote and 4. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gooding.
No recorded vote and for the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelwood.
No and 4.
Councillor Hookway.
No recorded vote and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
No recorded vote for the motion.
Councillor Ionu. Councillor Lucas Gill.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Lumley.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs McPherson.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Merrick.
No and 4.
Councillor Milne.
No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Pavlin.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote 4.
Councillor Sperring.
No and 4.
Councillor Steptoe.
No and 4.
Councillor Ward.
No and 4, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Webb.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Weston.
No and 4, Chairman.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No and 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
No and 4, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
No and 4, Chairman.
And Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. No and 4.
Thank you, members.
He's on mute. What's he saying?
Members, that has been passed unanimously. 30 votes for, none against, no abstentions. Members, before we conclude the business for this meeting, this will be Sean Strutton's last council meeting before he retires at the end of the month. Sean joined the council on the 14th of October 1985 as a planning assistant and has undertaken a variety of roles, including as head of planning and transportation for a number of years before being promoted to director and finally to managing director on the 27th of June 2016. I know that you will all wish to join me in thanking Sean for his many years of service to the council and the district of Rochford and wishing him all the very best for the future and his retirement. Members, does anybody else wish to say a few words?
I will, Chairman.
Mrs. Weston.
Bow ties.
Councillor Hudson, were you indicating you wish to speak?
I am trying, yes. I've worked with Sean with a 2-year gap for 19 years. I have such respect for him and his ability to assimilate information, which left me lacking. And I thought I was pretty good, nothing like Sean. This council and this district will miss him greatly. Thank you for everything you've done, Sean.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Hudson has said very much what I wanted to say myself. I haven't worked with Sean quite as long, but I first met Sean when I served on the Standards Committee as parish representatives many years ago now. It has been he's been very helpful towards me. He's been very supportive. And as somebody's already mentioned, his bow ties sometimes left a little bit to be desired, but generally speaking, I found him more than helpful, and I, for one, will miss him greatly, and I wish him all the best for his future endeavours.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Mrs. Butcher.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to say that I first met Sean at Christmas 1988 when I was one of his neighbours. We shared some bottles of wine, and I'd like to say he did have some competition for his bow ties at that time. So, and then of course I re-met him again when I was on the council. So I just want to wish him and his family every good luck for the future. And it's been a pleasure working with him and knowing him as a neighbour and as a friend.
Councillor Williams.
No, nothing to say really, rather than thank you, Sean, for everything that you've done. Thank you.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought it was appropriate to let others that will have known Sean a lot longer than I to have their say first, but a very sincere good wishes from me, Sean, for a very happy retirement. Thank you for your support in the relatively or the very short time that we have worked together. I wish you well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'm one of the slightly older ones as far as council service goes. And I've been lucky enough to work with Sean, particularly with what seems to have been one of my homes as chairing planning committee on a good number of occasions. And I absolutely, we've all benefited from Sean's enthusiasm and energy when it comes to advising and helping us with planning. A good number of us know that Sean's a man of many talents. We know he likes to dress up in leather. He likes to splash around in the water, and I'm sure he will find ways of keeping himself more than busy and fit and healthy in the future. Thank you, Sean, and good luck.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Sean, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members, for your comments. Very much appreciated. And it has been a privilege to work for a goodly part of my career in local government at Rochford. And obviously, I've seen many changes over those years. But I'd just like to thank members and officers that I've worked with throughout that time who've provided tremendous support and encouragement. I know we're living through challenging times, but I wish you all well, and I'll be watching from the sidelines. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Members, thank you all for attending, and thank you for your patience and forbearing. I declare the meeting closed at 10:34. Thank you, members. And good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.